I want a full breakdown from you, and I think everybody needs a full breakdown. I got texts from my buddies that went to that are Illinois grads last night, and they're like, "What the hell has gone wrong?" Because I was out in Vegas, early in the season. And I was like, "This team's fun to watch." Brad Underwood was excited. They split their games out there, but they felt pretty good about how they played. Terrence Shannon, remember, went for that one game where he couldn't miss from three. And we were looking at this team as a potential Final Four team. Now, Rob, and you were at this game last night. Now we're looking at this Illini team, as a complete disaster. And whether they can even make the NCAA tournament is a valid question today, isn't it?
You know what? We said it last night at the end of the broadcast. Can we really be talking about Illinois on the bubble with wins over Texas and UCLA? But they're 0-4 in conference. You know, they're now 0-3. They've got Wisconsin, who's 3-0 coming into Champaign Saturday. This is a fascinating case study in totally retooling your team in the portal and NIL era, right? Like you could say that they have gone that route heavily. They have really talented freshmen. It was the second most, I guess, touted recruiting class in the Big Ten coming in this year, but they went the route of the portal. You know, Dane Danger, who did get to practice last year some, but he's a transfer from Baylor. Matt Meyer, transfer from Baylor. Terrence Shannon, transfer from Texas Tech. I don't even recognize this team at this point. Now, we went to shoot around, and Brad was on these dudes. I mean, on these dudes.
Yeah.
And he was yelling, and he was trying to motivate, and he was yelling about leadership, and they clearly do not have a leader. Like, they clearly do not have a leader of this team.
It doesn't surprise me, Rob.
No.
Part doesn't surprise me.
How could it? Because none of these dudes were really on the team last year. Outside of Coleman Hawkins.
Previous spots.
What's that?
They weren't leaders at their previous spots.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to all of a sudden become a leader at a new spot. Just because you're older doesn't mean all of a sudden you can become a good leader.
Yeah, agreed. And Coleman Hawkins is not that, and RJ Melendez is not that. I think it's fascinating. You know, there was a lot made. There was articles written, and even at shoot around we watched that Illinois was going to change their style up. No more switching five ways. You know, they weren't switching off the ball. They're going to chase screens. They're going to, stay with people off the basketball. And then offensively, they're going to run the spread. But I got the vibe that they hadn't really run it much in the summer. And it's hard for me to believe that at the college level or even at the high school level that you could just say over Christmas break, all right, we're going to put the spread in. Yeah. Not that it's it's a pattern. It's not the most complicated thing in the world by any means. You know, that ball swings, all right, cut her through, reverse it. They're trying to get that hammer. But if you haven't done it, and the only person on that team that's ever run it is Coleman Hawkins. So I was watching the Bethune-Cookman game to get ready for this Northwestern game last night, and you could see that Coleman Hawkins was catching the ball at times and pointing guys where to go, which, I've seen that before. There's one example that sticks out in my mind, and if it's one player, fine. Like, you can kind of hold his hand, lead him around, whatever.
But not the whole team.
But if it's like a bunch of dudes that don't know how to run it and aren't comfortable not because they can't understand it, but because they haven't had the time to do it, a total overhaul like that, especially offensively, is concerning. And it tells me that, and look, it's not rocket science to say they stink in the half court. They have stunk in the half court all year. If they don't get out in transition, they can't score. But they turn the basketball over like crazy. They foul a lot. The free throw disparity last night was large, and Illinois fans, judging from my Twitter mentions, that people were tweeting at me, were not happy about it. And there was a couple calls where it's like, all right, that boo-boo, he tripped over his own feet. But
I'm so tired of the refs being everything that if team loses, and
that's all it is. Refs screwed us. Announcers didn't talk about it enough. Like, these fans are insane.
It balances out.
It does.
Yes. Does Bill Self get more calls than everybody else? Probably. Did Kay? Yeah. Did Roy? but they earned it. They earned it.
But think about this: the fact that Illinois is and it's not all of Illinois fans; it's a vocal minority for sure. But the fact that I had anyone saying, "Man, we got shafted at Northwestern," like think about that. How many times has Northwestern come up on the raw end of an officiating deal? I think the rest is a bad example. Were there a couple calls that put Northwestern at the line that were like, all right, maybe not? Yeah, there were, but that's not why they lost that game. Northwestern was better. Chase Audige, I give him a lot of credit. I've been highly critical of Audige
because he didn't make shots
for the last two. Not even that. It was his shot selection. Yeah. I thought the last 2 years was really poor, but he was under control last night. He's an all-league type defender. He's a great defensive player. He just is active. He gets steals. He gets his hand on the ball. But he outplayed Terrence Shannon. It's as simple as that. And for a while in that game, it was like, is anybody going to help Audige? Boo Buie struggled. But Illinois, I don't know. Coleman Hawkins shoots when he should pass and passes when he should shoot. He looks so confused as to what he should do. He's talented, but it's just never equaled production. Dane Danger gets into Brad Underwood's doghouse like at the highest level. And then they just kind of, I don't know, they're just out there. I mean, they kind of stunk last night, and they've kind of stunk for a long time now.
My big question to Brad in the preseason when I saw them practice was, and you know where I stand on point guards.
Let me guess, who's the point guard?
Well, it was, but it was
no, it's fouled.
But he tried to convince me, and I think he was trying to convince himself.
Yeah,
that they didn't need a point guard, that they were going to run stuff through Shannon or whoever, and that's fine. Like Shannon can initiate offense, but that's not where he's best.
Right.
That's not where he's best. To me, you want Terrence Shannon to be a scoring wing that somebody makes his life easier for him. Instead, he's got to do everything for this team.
Right.
And that's not fair for him.
You know what's interesting? Just in going on Synergy and looking at Synergy gives really cool breakdowns of individual play types.
Yeah. And
what surprises me is that coming into last night, Terrence Shannon was shooting 56% from the field in pick and roll as the handler, which I didn't think he would do that great. And not that he couldn't do it, but I mean, 56% in that situation is really good. And he's shooting only 50% in transition, where I would think he'd be like 65, 68, 70 because of the level of athlete he is. The Illinois shot selection last night was abysmal. I mean, Brad Underwood was going to lose his mind on the sideline. Shannon took a couple bad ones. Matt Meyer took some bad ones. Well, he did. Matt Meyer took some shots that just make you shake your head. Like, if you've made 4 in a row, fine. Coleman Hawkins takes threes that make no sense. Coleman Hawkins has Matthew Nicholson guarding him. 7 foot, 265 pounds. Yeah. NBA 3, 8 on the shot clock. You're like, dude, you can get by this guy whenever you want and either get to the basket or get a shot for somebody else, a wide open one for one of your teammates. They just look.
How do they fix? Is it chemistry as much as anything, or is it just
chemistry, leadership? Yeah. I think that we were talking, Brandon Gaud and I at halftime, just watching Illinois come out and warm up. And not that they played well in the first half. The game wasn't over by any means. I think they were down by like 4.
Right.
Everyone's body language was just like,
it sucked.
Just everyone looked like it was the most miserable experience of their life to be out there playing in a sold-out crowd that's more pro-Illinois than Northwestern. And it just was like, just looked like it was a terrible thing for them. I don't know. I don't know how you fix it. I mean, you've got Wisconsin coming in, massive game on Saturday. Wisconsin's undefeated in Big Ten play. Tyler Wall, who knows if he'll play? He sprained his ankle in their win against Minnesota. But if Illinois loses and goes to 0-4, oh my God. And I don't think it gets easier. I mean, you go to Nebraska, who just rolled Iowa at home. I know they didn't play great at Michigan State. Then they have the Spartans at home. And then they finally have a game where you're like, all right, Minnesota on the road. But the Gophers just played Wisconsin tough in Madison. Boy,